Hi, this is Nick Beach here. I'm in Studio Deluxe, as I'm sure you can tell from the background. Today I want to present a kind of a quick video featuring two Pulitzer Prize winners who put the kibosh on holier than thou media piety. In this case, we're talking about Vietnam War coverage. The first person is the person you see on the right of the screen. That's Michael Hare, a Vietnam War reporter who wrote the narrator's monologue for Apocalypse Now, and he also co-wrote the script for Full Metal Jacket, another Hollywood movie. He wrote that along with Stanley Kubrick and Gustav Hasford. The second person here is Eddie Adams, looking pretty smooth. He's famous for the following photograph, which is probably familiar to you. Yep, this charmer here. And what he has to say about this, I think you will find quite surprising. Okay, let's first cue the video, and I'll catch you on the other side. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention, this clip, these two clips, or three clips I've selected here, are from this particular documentary. It's a Vietnam War documentary. It's kind of childishly produced, but it has some really seriously killer, pun intended, interviews. Just fascinating. People talking, saying all kinds of things that I doubt they would say now. I'm surprised they didn't have lawyers to keep them quiet. So what they were saying is pretty amazing stuff. It's pretty frank. Anyway, you can find this whole documentary on YouTube, I believe, still. So check it out if you want. Okay, I'll catch you on the other side.
We recognize something when we see these photographs. We're very attracted to it, and of course we're repelled by it. We don't understand, these feelings we're having about it. There's some connection that everybody feels to these photographs. And I think even a kid knows that, because it's obscene. It's a terrible intrusion. It's the ultimate blood sport, and it would be not useful to pretend to anyone that it isn't exciting, that it doesn't really turn people on. Always has done, and it always will. It can't be an accident that the bloodiest century in history was also the century of, the movie camera. I've heard for years and years and years the sort of pathetic claim of television journalists that because they were there all the time and it was on the news every night, that they were responsible for shortening the war in Vietnam, when my feeling is that they actually were instrumental in prolonging it.
Curiosity. I'm very curious. I wanted to see for myself. That's one reason I volunteered to. So.
But what were you curious about?
The things that have been put on TV about how guys was killing babies, killing this, killing that.
So how did you feel when you shot the
Nothing.
picture with Lamont?
Nothing. No, I felt absolutely nothing. It was, when I did the picture, I stopped back at the AP office and I handed him this roll of film. And I said, I think I got somebody killing somebody. And I went out to lunch. It was that simple. People were getting shot. Like they do in all wars. And it's expected. If I got killed, I was killed. I've seen so many people die. He was one of many people who were killed that day. And when I took the picture, it was, so what? Anybody there could have taken the picture. I had nothing to do with that. It happened and I was there. A lot of times we would go out on an operation. It was in Bosnia or something. Was it Bosnia? And nobody shoots at you. If they don't shoot at you, I have no pictures. I can't take a still photograph. You guys could have a story with footage, even if nobody shot, that's the story. But me, with one still photograph, what am I going to do, show a tired soldier? I mean, because nobody, in fact, we used to have a little saying on the early days of the war, if we're lucky we get ambushed. Because we got ambushed, we have pictures and we have a story. You got people die in ambushes and get hurt. And later on, as the war progressed, we never joked about that anymore because it got very serious.
In addition, regarding that photo, Eddie Adams had some other stuff to say as well. You can see it here on his Wikipedia page, and I'll read it quickly for you. He wrote that 2 people died in that photograph. The recipient of the bullet and General Nguyen Ngoc Loan. The general killed the Viet Cong. I killed the general with my camera. Still, photographs are the most powerful weapons in the world. People believe them, and this is key. People believe them, but photographs do lie, even without manipulation. They are only half-truths. What the photograph didn't say was, what would you do if you were the general at that time and place on that hot day and you caught the so-called bad guy after he blew away 1, 2, or 3 American people? What would you do? Right? This picture really messed up his life. He never blamed me. He told me if I hadn't taken the picture, someone else would have. But I felt bad for him and his family for a long time. I sent flowers when I heard that he had died, and wrote, I'm sorry, there are tears in my eyes. Anyway, it seems to me, the reason I'm making this video is because it seems to me there's still there's a fair amount of innocence amongst people, I think, when it comes to reporters. People still believe that reporters are saints, their eyes are on the stars, they're forever operating with lofty motives. And if not that, then they're thinking, okay, sure, reporters are kind of sketchy on the small stuff, but would they willfully exaggerate the threat of something like coronavirus? No way, that's like too important, man. That's, people get real, they understand bullshit. Actually, this is precisely the time that people exaggerate threats. Sociopaths. Okay, I've known such, not known such reporters, but I've known other people in other walks of life who are psychopaths. You do not understand how these people think. It is precisely by exaggerating the threat of situations that you get yourself in the news and you win Pulitzer Prizes. We're all familiar with the mantra, never let a crisis go to waste, right? However, despite their often pious news presentations, the reporters that you see at the top of the food chain often got there simply by chasing fame and fortune. They chase ratings regardless of the consequences to the rest of us. Hype is their bread and butter. It pays the bills, it earns promotions, it wins prizes. One way to look at it is this. If you don't tend to trust advertisements, then consider the fact that the news is basically filler for advertisements. You can't run advertisements, obviously, 60 minutes of the hour. You can't do that. You need to space the ads out with filler, and that's what the news is. Okay, it's filler. And at the end of the day, it is the advertisements that count to media owners, not the filler. The filler is whatever it takes to get eyeballs on the ads, whatever it takes. One modern day example of the whole filler kind of thing is the way in which the media went woke a few years ago. Why did it go woke? Did it go woke because the owners were woke themselves? Were they like far left people, wingers who believed in 70 genders and all the rest of that nonsense? No, of course not. Most of these people were basically libertarians. So what were they doing? They were chasing the bottom line. They were told by their consultants that the young generation was going to be woke and that they needed, if they're going to catch this generation basically and bring them into the fold and make them kind of lifelong readers of their various publications, you have to catch them now when they're in college or when they're just coming out of college, because once they become loyal to a paper, that they'll stay loyal for years, decades even. And so all of a sudden the media, all at the same time, because they're all being informed by the same media consultants, they all turned woke, not because woke was something real, but simply because it was a tactic a way for drawing in young readers so that they could guarantee their readership down the road. It was a perfectly cynical venture. It had nothing whatsoever to do with truth. It was just, what sort of filler do you need to bring in the advertisements? That's all it was about. And as I mentioned previously, there's 3 choices as far as I can see it. There's the truth, there's plausible fake news, and then there's implausible fake news. And the plausible fake news is what wins the Pulitzer Prizes. We've seen this over and over again. In my personal experience, you can't trust a Pulitzer Prize winning book written after, let's say, 1965. They're just garbage. If I was to ever win a Pulitzer Prize, I would refuse it. Why would I take it? Well, unless I came with a few bucks, I could use a few simoleons. But otherwise, I would decline it. My favorite writer, H.L. Mencken, repeatedly declined prizes. He made it very public he would not accept a Nobel Prize. He would not accept a Pulitzer or any of these things. He considered them all to be garbage. They were all basically ways for the people who issued the prizes to kind of associate themselves with famous people. That's all it was about. It was basically people who were chasing fame by virtue of giving out prizes to famous people and then associating themselves with the issuing of these prizes. Anyway, with regard to the video, as Eddie Adams pointed out, his photograph was completely misinterpreted, and no doubt deliberately, by the activist mainstream media back at home. And yet, in the scheme of things, as Eddie Adams put it, that killing, that death, murder, assassination, call it what you like, it was so what? It was at a time people have been killed all the time, and anyway, according to Adams, it was done for the right reasons. Anyway, I don't want anybody to misunderstand me as something anonymous towards reporters. I don't. I would actually kind of like to be a reporter myself. I think it'd be a lot of fun. But I do have a bullshit detector trained on them at all times. As H.L. Mencken, America's arguably most famous news reporter back in the, well, he would have definitely been so back in the 1920s and 30s. As he wrote, he said, "Never trust a man who makes his living with his mouth." And that, to me, that goes doubly for writers, to which dubious tribe I belong myself. Anyway, well, at the risk of being corny, beep, 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 that's my take on the news. Anyway, all right, I'll see you around. Bye-bye.